Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku unlocked his lost quirk. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The dawn broke over Dagobah Municipal Beach, painting the horizon in bruised purples and bleeding oranges. The air smelled of salt, rotting seaweed, and the metallic tang of 10 months of grueling labor. Izuku Midoriya stood atop a pile of garbage that had once been a mountain. He was screaming. It wasn't a scream of terror, nor of pain, though his body was currently a symphony of aches. It was a scream of conquest. He stood shirtless, his chest heaving like a bellows, sweat tracking through the grime on his skin. He looked at his hands, calloused, scarred, and trembling, and clenched them into fists. Oh my! Oh my goodness! The booming voice shattered the moment. Izuku spun around to see All Might, in his emaciated true form, looking at the cleared beach with his jaw practically unhinged. You actually did it, All Might wheezed, transforming in a puff of steam into his buff form, a titan of muscle and American charisma. You finished! And just in the nick of time. The entrance exam is in 3 hours. Izuku collapsed, his legs finally giving out. He hit the sand, staring up at the hero who had become his world. I wanted to be ready, he rasped. I didn't want to just clear the path. I wanted to be worthy of walking on it. All Might laughed, a sound that seemed to push back the tide. He scooped the boy up with effortless grace. Worthy? Young Midoriya, you have exceeded my expectations. You have built a vessel capable of holding the power. But... All Might's expression turned serious. He plucked a single, long strand of golden hair from his head. There is no time for ceremony. The exam approaches. You must accept my power now. Izuku swallowed hard. This was it. The secret of one for all. The torch passed down through generations. He expected a ritual. He expected a transfer of energy through a handshake, or perhaps a drop of blood. All Might thrust the hair into his face. Eat this. Izuku blinked. The seagulls overhead cried out, mocking him. Excuse me? DNA absorption. All Might said, striking a pose while holding the hair like a holy relic. It doesn't matter how. Just swallow it. Digest it. Hurry, or you'll miss the train. With a grimace that defied the solemnity of the moment, Izuku took the hair. It felt wrong. It felt ridiculous. But looking into All Might's eyes, burning with blue fire and intense hope, Izuku stopped thinking. He closed his eyes, shoved the hair into his mouth, and swallowed. It scratched his throat on the way down. Disgusting, Izuku gagged. Excellent. All Might gave him a thumbs up. Now go home. Shower. And get to UA. You are quirkless no more, my boy. Izuku ran. He ran all the way home, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He didn't feel different. He checked his reflection in the bathroom mirror. As he scrubbed the beach muck off his skin, he looked the same. Green curls, freckles, wide nervous eyes. He focused on his stomach. Nothing. No surging power. No lightning. Just the lingering nausea of having eaten hair. Is it really in there? He wondered, pulling on his black Gakurin uniform. Did it work? Or will I get to the exam and just be me? A strange sensation flickered in his chest. A heat. It was faint, like swallowing a spoonful of hot soup too quickly. He rubbed his sternum. Izuku! You're going to be late. Inko's voice drifted from the kitchen. Coming, Mom! He grabbed his yellow backpack. As he rushed out the door, the heat in his chest flared again, sharper this time, radiating out toward his shoulders. He shook his head. Nerves. It had to be nerves. Or maybe heartburn. He had a hero to become. The gates of UA High School were less like a school entrance, and more like the pearly gates of Olympus. They towered over the students, glistening in the morning sun. The sheer scale of the structure was designed to intimidate, to weed out those with weak wills before they even set foot inside. Izuku walked through the archway, clutching the straps of his backpack so tightly his knuckles turned white. The walkway was crowded with students from all over the country. Some had mutations visible on their skin, scales, feathers, extra limbs. Others looked normal but carried an aura of confidence that Izuku envied. One for all, he chanted in his head. I have one for all. I am not the same kid I was yesterday. Out of my way, Deku. The voice was low, growling, and intimately familiar. Izuku froze, his spine locking up. He turned to see Katsuki Bakugo slouching toward him, hands in his pockets, his face twisted into its perpetual scowl. Keikaken! Izuku squeaked, stepping aside instinctively. Old habits died hard. Good luck with it. Don't talk to me, Bakugo spat, walking past him without breaking stride. Just don't stand in front of me unless you want to die. Izuku watched him go, a mixture of relief and sadness swirling in his gut. Bakugo didn't know. No one knew. For the first time in his life, Izuku was holding an ace up his sleeve, but he was terrified to play it. He took a step forward, his foot catching on his own ankle in his distraction. Gravity took hold. The pavement rushed up to meet his face. Great. I'm going to fail before I even take the test. Death by tripping. He braced for impact, screwing his eyes shut. The impact never came. He felt weightless. His feet were hovering inches off the ground. Panic spiked. Did I do this? Is this the quirk? Before he realized he was floating, but not controlling it. Are you okay? A bubbly voice floated into his ear. Izuku looked up. A girl with a round face, rosy cheeks, and chestnut hair was standing next to him, her hand hovering near his backpack. I stopped you with my quirk, she said, smiling brightly. It's bad luck to trip on the first day, right? She released him, and he dropped the remaining 2 inches to the ground. Izuku scrambled to his feet, his face heating up. Wow, thank you, I'm Uraraka Ochako. She chirped. We're totally nervous, right? But let's do our best. She waved and headed into the building. Izuku stood there, statue still, for a solid 10 seconds. I talked to a girl, he thought, hysteria bubbling in his mind. Well, she talked to me. And I made noises. That counts. But as he walked toward the exam hall, that strange heat in his chest returned. It was stronger now. A low-grade fever that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. He loosened his collar. Was he sick? Had the beach cleanup compromised his immune system? Not now, he begged his own body. Please, not now. The written exam was a blur of kanji and equations. Izuku's hand moved on autopilot. Academics had never been his struggle. His obsession with hero analysis meant his brain was a filing cabinet of tactical data. But the physical discomfort was growing. By the time he sat in the auditorium for the orientation, he was sweating. Everybody say hey. Present Mike screamed from the stage, his voice amplified to stadium levels. Silence greeted him. Izuku shifted in his seat, rubbing his left arm. It felt tight. Like his skin was a size too small for the muscle underneath. Tough crowd. Mike shrugged. He launched into the explanation of the practical exam. 3 types of villain bots. Points based on difficulty. 10 minutes to rack up a score in a simulated city. Izuku muttered under his breath, analyzing the robotic schematics displayed on the screen. If they are mechanized, joint weaknesses are likely, but brute force is encouraged, meaning durability must be high. Shut up. Bakugo, sitting next to him, didn't even look at him. You're annoying. Sorry, Izuku whispered. Suddenly, a hand shot up in the row ahead of them. A tall boy with glasses and the posture of a steel beam stood up. Sir. The handout clearly lists 4 types of villains, not 3. If this is a misprint, it is a shameful error for a top-tier institution like UA. The boy turned, pointing a stiff finger directly at Izuku. And you! With the curly hair. You've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting. If you're here to disrupt the proceedings, you should leave immediately. The spotlight of attention burned. Izuku shrank into his seat, mumbling a terrified apology. The heat in his body spiked again, a flash of warmth that made his vision swim for a split second. Okay, examinee 7111. Present Mike waved his hands. The 4th robot is the 0-pointer. Think of it like a thwomp in a video game. It's just an obstacle. No points. Best to just run away. Run away, Izuku thought. I can do that. Battle Center B. The bus ride to the testing site was agonizing. Izuku stood in front of the massive gates of the simulated city, surrounded by other examinees. He was wearing his green tracksuit, the fabric clinging to his clammy skin. He felt like a furnace. Why is it so hot? He looked around. The other students looked tense, but none of them were sweating as profusely as he was. He wiped his forehead, his hand coming away slick. He tried to summon one for all. He clenched his butt cheeks, like All Might had suggested. He felt something. A reservoir of power, deep and vast. But every time he tried to tap into it, a sharp, searing pain lanced through his nervous system. It felt like the power was fighting something else inside him. A blockage. Start. President Mick's voice rang out from the guard tower. What are you waiting for? There are no countdowns in real fights. Go, go, go! The crowd surged forward. Izuku panicked. He stumbled, nearly tripping again, and was instantly left in the dust. Wait! I need points. He sprinted into the city. It was a labyrinth of concrete and glass, identical to a real urban district. Sounds of destruction already echoed from the streets ahead. Explosions. Crashing metal. Shouts of victory. Izuku turned a corner and saw a one-pointer, a unicycle-style robot with long arms. Target acquired, the robot droned. Okay, Izuku gasped. Okay. Use the power. Just a little bit. He pulled back his fist. He focused on the feeling of the egg in the microwave. Don't let it explode. Here goes. A laser beam shot past his ear, piercing the robot's optical sensor. The machine collapsed in a heap of sparks. Merci! A blond boy with a sparkling navel laser pranced past him. Too slow, mon ami! Izuku stood there, fist still raised, punching the empty air. 0 points! He ran again. It became a nightmare. Everywhere he turned, someone was faster. Someone was stronger. He saw the guy with the engines in his legs kick a robot's head off. He saw Uraraka touching robots and letting them fall from the sky. He saw students melting walls, creating weapons, hardening their skin. And then there was Izuku. Quirkless, sweating, burning up. 6 minutes passed. Then 8. 0 points. The reality of it crashed down on him. All Might had given him the greatest gift in the world, and he was going to waste it because he couldn't even throw a punch. He was going to fail. He was going to remain Deku forever. The heat in his chest was unbearable now. It wasn't just heartburn anymore. It felt like he had swallowed a live coal. His blood felt like it was boiling. His vision had a strange, shimmering vignette around the edges. What is wrong with me? Is the quirk rejecting me? Then, the ground shook. It wasn't a vibration, it was an earthquake. The asphalt cracked. Dust billowed from the north end of the city. A shadow fell over the street, blotting out the sun. Izuku looked up, and up, and up. The 0-pointer. It was gargantuan, easily taller than the skyscrapers surrounding it. Its green chassis gleamed with menace, and its multiple red eyes scanned the ground like a god judging insects. It punched a building. The structure crumbled like wet cardboard. Debris rained down, chunks of concrete the size of cars. Run! Someone screamed. The students broke. The desire for points evaporated instantly. This was survival. The crowd stampeded past Izuku, rushing toward the exit gates. It's too big! Get out of here! Izuku's legs shook. His instinct was to run. Every logical neuron in his brain screamed at him to turn around. He took a step back. Ow! A faint cry cut through the roar of the collapsing city. Izuku froze. He looked toward the base of the robot. Through the dust and smoke, he saw her. Uraraka. The nice girl. She was pinned under a slab of concrete rubble, struggling to free her leg. The 0-pointer was looming directly over her, its massive treads grinding the pavement into dust. It raised a metal fist, preparing to level the area where she lay. Time stopped. The fear vanished. The logic vanished. The nausea vanished. There was only the sight of someone in trouble. Izuku moved. He didn't think about one for all. He didn't think about his fever. He just ran. He sprinted toward the Titan, his legs pumping harder than they ever had on the beach. I have to save her. He reached the blast zone. He jumped, and that was when the dam broke. As he launched himself into the air, fueled by pure adrenaline, he unconsciously reached for the power All Might had given him. He didn't grab a piece of it. In his desperation, he grabbed all of it. One for All flooded his system. It was too much. His vessel was prepared, yes, but the faucet had been ripped off the wall. The raw energy surged into his legs, propelling him upward with the force of a missile. The wind whipped at his face, tearing tears from his eyes. He was flying. He was level with the robot's face. My legs, they feel like they're broken, he realized distantly. The force of the jump had shattered the bones. But he couldn't stop. He pulled his right arm back. Clench your buttocks and yell this inside your heart. Smash! He channeled everything into his right arm. The stockpile of power, cultivated by 8 heroes, honed by the symbol of peace, rushed into his limb. But then, something else happened. Deep within Izuku's genetic code, there was a dormant sequence. A double helix switch that had been rusted shut since birth. The doctor had called it a lack of a quirk factor. He was wrong. It wasn't absent, it was sleeping. It was a heavy, complex mutation that required a massive amount of bioenergy to jumpstart. A spark to light the pilot light. One for All was a nuclear reactor, and Izuku just plugged it into the sleeping circuit. The heat that had been plaguing him all morning wasn't a sickness. It was the engine revving up. As the power of One for All hit his arm, the pressure was catastrophic. His bones began to splinter under the load. The muscles frayed. The physical trauma was immense, and the trauma triggered the survival mechanism. Snap! A sound like a gunshot echoed inside Izuku's body. His vision went red. Then green. From the pores of his right arm, fire erupted. It wasn't the orange flame of a campfire. It was a viscous, roaring emerald inferno. It exploded outward with the violence of a shaped charge. The fire didn't burn him, or rather, it was him. It wrapped around his shattering arm, acting as a pressurized brace. The heat was instantaneous and absolute. The air around his fist distorted, superheating into plasma. Izuku didn't understand what was happening. He just knew he had to punch. Smash! He screamed aloud. His fist connected with the zero-pointer's faceplate. The impact was apocalyptic. One for All provided the kinetic force, crumpling the meter-thick steel like aluminum foil. But the fire did something else. It flooded the interior of the robot. The green flames melted the circuitry, vaporized the hydraulic fluid, and turned the metal into slag. A shockwave of green fire and compressed air blasted out the back of the robot's head, punching a hole through the clouds above the city. The giant machine groaned, the sound of tearing metal screeching across the arena. It tipped backward, its head completely obliterated, melted into a glowing green ruin. Izuku hung in the air for a second, suspended in the aftermath of his own power. Then, gravity remembered him. He began to fall. The pain hit him all at once. His legs were broken. His right arm was, he couldn't even feel his right arm. It felt like it was encased in molten lead. I'm falling, he thought, his mind hazy. I need to land? Uraraka, is she safe? He looked down. The ground was rushing up fast. Too fast. I'm going to die. He tried to move his arms to brace himself, but his body wouldn't obey. He was limp. Suddenly, his right arm, the one engulfed in the strange green energy, flared. A jet of emerald fire shot out from his elbow, unbidden. It acted like a retro-rocket, a chaotic burst of propulsion that spun him wildly in the air. It didn't stop the fall, but it broke the terminal velocity. He crashed into the asphalt, bouncing once, twice, before skidding to a halt. Silence descended on Battle Center B. The dust settled. The zero-pointer lay motionless, a smoking monument to destruction. Izuku lay on his back. He was conscious, but barely. His vision was tunneling. He looked at his right arm. The sleeve of his tracksuit was gone. His skin, it wasn't just broken. It was purple, bruised, and twisted, typical of the recoil of One for All. But overlaying the bruises were intricate, glowing fissures. Veins of magma-green light pulsed beneath his skin. Wisps of green smoke curled off his fingers. The weirdest part? There was no blood. The intense heat of the fire had instantly cauterized the muscle tears and compound fractures inside his arm. Fire? Izuku thought, his brain sluggish. Why is there fire? Hey! Hey, wake up! Uraraka was there. She was hovering over him, her face pale and streaked with dust. She slapped his cheek. You saved me! But, oh God, your arm! Your legs! Izuku tried to speak. All that came out was a puff of gray smoke. 1 point. He wheezed. At least, 1 point. Other students began to emerge from the alleys. Did you see that? He took down the 0-pointer in one hit. What was that green explosion? I thought he was quirkless. He has a fire quirk? Dude, look at him. He's smoking. Izuku's eyes rolled back. The heat in his body was fading, replaced by a freezing cold. The adrenaline crash was brutal. All Might, he thought as the darkness took him. I think I broke it. The observation room. The silence in the faculty room was heavy. A dozen pro heroes stared at the wall of monitors. The screen showing Battle Center B was paused on the image of the 0-pointer's melted, caved-in head. That was unexpected, Midnight murmured, breaking the tension. Nizu, the principal, sat with his paws folded, his beady eyes gleaming. Raw power. Immense. But completely uncontrolled. He destroyed the obstacle, Cementos noted. But he destroyed himself in the process. Look at those injuries. In the back of the room, standing in the shadows, All Might gripped the railing until the metal groaned. He was trembling. Young Midoriya, he thought, panic rising in his throat. What was that? That wasn't just super strength. That was heat. Thermal energy. He watched the replay on a smaller screen. He slowed it down. He saw the moment of impact. The arm didn't just deliver force, it ignited. Did I make a mistake? Cold sweat tricked down All Might's back. Did he already have a quirk? One that was hidden? If I forced one for all into a vessel that was already occupied, the overflow. Recovery girl is en route, Aizawa spoke up from his corner, his eyes narrowed at the screen. He looked bored, but his posture was tense. But there's something wrong with the thermal readings. Wrong how? President Mike asked. Aizawa pointed to the telemetry data scrolling on the side of the screen. The boy's body temperature. It spiked to over 400 degrees Celsius at the moment of impact. He shouldn't be alive. He should have cooked his own brain. All Might felt sick. The infirmary. The smell of antiseptic was replaced by the smell of burnt sugar and ozone. Recovery girl stood over the bed, her expression grim. Izuku lay unconscious, hooked up to half a dozen machines. His right arm and both legs were heavily bandaged, but the bandages on his arm were special, thermal-resistant wraps usually reserved for Endeavor's sidekicks. All Might stood in the doorway, still in his buff form, though he was struggling to maintain it. How is he, Chio? He asked, his voice uncharacteristically small. The old woman sighed, hopping down from her stool. He's stable. But it's complicated. Complicated? His bones are broken, yes. The legs are a clean break. I can heal those easily, she explained, walking over to the X-ray display. But the arm. Tashinori, look at this. She pointed to the scan of Izuku's right arm. The bones are shattered, consistent with the backlash of your power. But look at the tissue surrounding them. All Might squinted. The muscle tissue looked dense. Fused. It's cauterized, Recovery Girl said. From the inside out. And look here. She pointed to a microscopic level scan. His cells. They've mutated. All Might stiffened. Mutated? He has a quirk factor, Tashinori, Recovery Girl said softly. It seems it was dormant. Extremely recessive. It required a massive physical shock, and a surge of external energy, to wake it up. All Might slumped against the doorframe. I gave him one for all. The stockpile acted as a catalyst, she finished. You jump-started a dead engine. But now we have a problem. She turned back to look at the boy. Izuku was breathing shallowly. Every time he exhaled, a tiny wisp of green vapor escaped his lips. His body isn't adapted to this fire quirk yet, Recovery Girl said. And he certainly isn't adapted to one for all. He has two volatile powers warring for dominance in a body that was built for neither. She walked over to Izuku and placed a hand on his forehead. She pulled it back instantly, hissing. He's still radiating heat. My healing quirk speeds up cellular regeneration, which generates body heat. If I use my power on him now, while his internal temperature is this high, I might accidentally incinerate him. All Might stared at his successor. The boy looked so small in the bed. He had wanted to give the boy a torch to light his way. Instead, it seemed he had handed him a stick of dynamite and lit the fuse. What do we do? All Might asked. We wait, Recovery Girl said, dipping a towel into a bucket of ice water and placing it on Izuku's forehead. The water sizzled instantly. We cool him down. And when he wakes up, you have a lot of explaining to do. All Might watched the steam rise from the boy's brow. Midoriya, he thought, guilt gnawing at his heart. I told you that you could be a hero. I didn't tell you the price might be your humanity. On the bed, Izuku's fingers twitched. For a brief second, the veins in his hand pulsed with a faint, emerald glow, casting long, dancing shadows against the sterile white walls of the infirmary. The fire was lit. And it was hungry. The first thing Izuku noticed was the thirst. It wasn't a normal thirst, the kind born of a long run or a hot day. It was a desiccation, a feeling as if every drop of moisture had been evaporated from his cells, leaving him a hollow, dried-out husk. His tongue felt like sandpaper against the roof of his mouth. His throat was a parched canyon. The second thing he noticed was the heat. He was lying in a bed. The softness of the mattress told him that. But it felt like he was lying on a griddle. The air around him was thick and humid, heavy with the scent of ozone, antiseptic, and something distinctly like singed hair. He tried to open his eyes. His eyelids felt heavy, gummed shut by exhaustion. He forced them apart, and the world swam into view through a haze of white light. A ceiling. White tiles. Fluorescent lights humming with an annoying buzz. I'm alive, he thought, the realization coming slow and sluggish. I fell from the sky. Memory crashed into him. The 0-pointer. The jump. The sensation of his bones turning to powder. And then, the fire. The green light. Izuku shot up in bed, a gasp tearing through his dry throat. Careful! A sharp voice cut through his panic. A small hand pressed against his chest, his bare chest, he realized, pushing him back down. Don't move so suddenly, Sonny. You're running hot enough to boil an egg. Let's not add a stroke to the list of symptoms. Izuku blinked, his vision clearing. Standing beside the bed was Recovery Girl, her visor glinting under the harsh lights. She looked tired. More than tired, she looked worried. Recovery Girl? Izuku rasped. His voice sounded like grinding stones. Where the exam? Over, she said briskly. She grabbed a plastic cup of water from a bedside table and held the straw to his lips. Drink. Slowly. Izuku didn't listen to the slowly part. He sucked the water down desperately. It was lukewarm, but it felt like nectar from the gods. He drained the cup in seconds. More, he begged. In a minute, she scolded, taking the cup away. If you drink too fast, you'll vomit, and I don't have the patience to clean it up. Izuku fell back against the pillows. He took stock of his body. His legs were elevated, encased in heavy casts. They throbbed with a dull, rhythmic ache, but the sharp, agonizing pain of broken bones was gone. Then he looked at his right arm. It was bandaged from fingertips to shoulder in a thick, silver material that looked like insulation foil. He couldn't see the skin, but he could feel it. It didn't hurt in the way a bruise hurt. It felt tight, compressed, and hot. My arm, Izuku whispered. Is it? It's attached, Recovery Girl said, reading his mind. Which is a miracle, considering what you did to it. She hopped down from her stool and walked over to a medical monitor that was beeping steadily. You shattered the humerus and the ulna. Comminuted fractures. Under normal circumstances, I would have had to perform surgery to pin them before using my quirk. But... She turned to look at him, her eyes narrowing behind her visor. The bones were already fusing by the time I got to you. Izuku frowned. Fusing? Cauterized, a deep voice rumbled from the corner of the room. Izuku flinched. He hadn't noticed the figure standing in the shadows, blocked by the privacy curtain. The figure stepped forward. It was All Might. But not the Titan who had stood on the beach. This was the true form, the skeletal, hollow-eyed man with the messy blonde hair and clothes that hung off his frame like laundry on a scarecrow. He looked graver than Izuku had ever seen him. All Might, Izuku breathed. Shame washed over him instantly. I failed. I got 0 points. I panicked, and I broke my limbs, and I didn't destroy any robots until the end, and that one didn't even count, and, young Midoriya, All Might interrupted, raising a hand. Breathe. Izuku shut his mouth, his heart hammering. All Might pulled a chair close to the bed. He sat down heavily, the metal legs screeching against the linoleum. He leaned forward, clasping his bony hands together. His blue eyes bored into Izuku's. We need to talk about the exam, All Might said quietly. But not about the points. We need to talk about the fire. Izuku froze. The fire? Don't play coy, boy, Recovery Girl said, refilling his water cup. You turned your arm into a blast furnace. The thermal sensors in the arena registered a spike of over 400 degrees Celsius at the point of impact. You melted the 0-pointer's faceplate. You didn't just punch it, you incinerated it. Izuku stared at his silver-wrapped arm. The memory was fuzzy, obscured by pain and adrenaline. He remembered the snap. He remembered the green light. He remembered the heat. I didn't mean to, Izuku stammered. I tried to use one for all. I did what you said. I clenched, and I yelled, and I tried to let the power out. But it felt blocked. It felt like there was too much pressure. And then it just popped. All Might exchanged a look with Recovery Girl. It was a look of shared concern that made Izuku's stomach twist. Young Midoriya, All Might said slowly. Did you lie to me? The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. What? Izuku's eyes went wide. Lie. About what? About being quirkless, All Might said. His voice wasn't angry, but it was heavy with fear. One for all is a power that stockpiles energy. It is meant to be passed to a vessel. If that vessel is already full, if the recipient already has a quirk, the strain can be fatal. It can shorten the lifespan, burn out the nervous system, or worse. He leaned in closer. If you hid a quirk from me to try and impress me, you need to tell me now. Because we might have just put a nuclear reactor inside a fireworks factory. Tears welled up in Izuku's eyes. I didn't. I swear. I've been quirkless my whole life. I have the extra toe joint. The doctor said I had no quirk factor. Everyone knows. Kaken, my mom, everyone. I'm Deku. I'm just Deku. He started to hyperventilate. The heat in the room seemed to spike. The water in the cup on the bedside table began to ripple. Calm down. Recovery Girl snapped. She reached out and tapped his forehead. You're overheating again. Look at the monitors. Izuku looked. The heart rate line was erratic, but the temperature gauge was climbing. 38 degrees C. 39 degrees C. He's telling the truth, Tashinori, Recovery Girl said, looking at the readings. Look at his distress. He's just as confused as we are. All Might sighed, the tension draining from his shoulders. He slumped back. Then what happened out there? Recovery Girl walked over to a light box on the wall and flicked a switch. An X-ray illuminated the room. It showed Izuku's arm. The bone structure was a mess of healed fractures, but overlaying the bone was a strange, ghostly network of density. I pulled your medical files from the registry, Recovery Girl explained. And I compared them to the scans I just took. The diagnosis you received at age 4 was, well, it wasn't wrong, per se, but it was incomplete based on modern understanding. She tapped the film with a pen. The toe joint theory is a statistical correlation, not a biological law. It's accurate 99% of the time. You, however, are in the 1%. Izuku listened, rapt. You have a quirk factor, she declared. But it was deep. Dormant. Think of it like a seed buried under 10 feet of concrete. Under normal circumstances, it never would have sprouted. You would have lived and died thinking you were quirkless. So, I had a quirk? The whole time? Izuku whispered. The idea was dizzying. 10 years of bullying. 10 years of crying. 10 years of feeling less than human. And it was there? Just sleeping? A very heavy, very recessive mutation, Recovery Girl continued. Likely a combination of your parents' quirks that resulted in something complex. Complex quirks often take more energy to manifest. Your body simply didn't have the battery power to turn the engine over. She pointed at All Might. Until he gave you the ultimate battery. All Might's eyes widened. One for All, acted as a jump start? Precisely, Recovery Girl nodded. The physical trauma of the punch, combined with the overwhelming surge of energy from the stockpile, shattered the concrete. The dormant gene woke up in a panic. It activated to protect the host. She gestured to Izuku's bandaged arm. That fire? It didn't burn you. It held you together. The heat cauterized the muscle tears instantly. The pressure of the flame acted as a splint. If you hadn't manifested that fire, Midoriya, your arm wouldn't just be broken. It would have been ripped off by the force of the punch. Izuku looked at his hand. He tried to wiggle his fingers. They moved stiffly against the bandages. So Izuku murmured. I'm not quirkless. Not anymore, Recovery Girl said. Technically you're a late bloomer. Extremely late. It's rare, but documented. Usually triggered by extreme stress or puberty. You had both. But this presents a problem, All Might said, his voice grim. Izuku looked at him. Problem? The fire saved your arm, yes, All Might said. But Chio says your body temperature is unstable. One for All is a stockpiling quirk. It enhances physical ability. If you have a fire quirk, One for All doesn't just enhance your muscles. It enhances the fire. He made a gesture of an explosion with his hands. You were meant to inherit a torch, young Midoriya. Instead, I think we just poured gasoline on a forest fire. The door to the infirmary slid open with a hiss. Izuku! Inko Midoriya didn't walk into the room. She burst in like a tear-filled hurricane. She was clutching her purse, her face red and blotchy from crying. Mom! Izuku sat up, ignoring the protest of his muscles. Inko rushed to the bedside, hovering over him, afraid to touch him because of the wires and bandages. Oh my God! Oh my God! The school called. They said you were in the infirmary. They said you were severely injured. My baby. My poor baby. She unleashed her own quirk, tears streaming from her eyes in literal fountains. I'm okay, Mom. I'm okay. Izuku waved his good hand. Recovery Girl healed me. Mostly. Inko grabbed his left hand, sobbing. Why? Why did you have to do this? I told you it was dangerous. You're fragile, Izuku. You can't just. Mrs. Midoriya, All Might stepped forward. He was still in his skeletal form, which caused Inko to pause and blink through her tears. Who are you? She sniffled. I am Yagi. A secretary here at UA, All Might lied smoothly. I was present during the exam. Recovery Girl cleared her throat. Mrs. Midoriya, please sit down. There is something we need to discuss regarding Izuku's condition. Inko sat, wringing her hands. Condition? Is it permanent? Will he walk? He will walk fine, Recovery Girl assured her. But we need to ask you about his father. And your own family history. Inko looked confused. His father? Hisashi? He's overseas. He works in America. And his quirk? Recovery Girl asked, notepad ready. He breathes fire, Inko said. Just a small breath. Like a dragon, I suppose? And I can pull small objects towards me. She demonstrated by lifting the water cup a few inches off the table with a gentle pull. Fire breath, Recovery Girl muttered, writing it down. Telekinesis. Why does this matter? Inko asked, her voice rising in pitch. Because, Mrs. Midoriya, Recovery Girl said, during the exam, Izuku manifested a quirk. Inko froze. The room went silent, save for the hum of the air conditioner. She looked at Izuku. Then back to the nurse. Then back to Izuku. That's impossible, she whispered. The doctor, when he was 4, he showed us the X-rays. The toe joint. The doctor was mistaken, Recovery Girl said gently. Or rather, the quirk was simply too deep to detect at the time. The stress of the exam brought it out. Inko stared at Izuku. Izuku? Is this true? Izuku nodded slowly. He raised his bandaged right arm. He focused. Not on one for all. He was too scared to touch that reservoir right now, but on the heat that still simmered in his chest. He imagined pulling it down his arm, like his mother pulled objects. Come here, he thought. Just a little. A sensation of warmth traveled down his shoulder. It reached his fingertips. Thwum. A small, emerald flame ignited on the tip of his index finger. It wasn't orange like normal fire. It was a deep, vibrant green, swirling with a strange viscosity. It didn't flicker wildly. It flowed, moving almost like a liquid in the air. Inko gasped, covering her mouth. It's green, she sobbed. Like his hair. But it's fire, like Hisashi. And he can shape it, Recovery Girl noted, watching the flame curl into a small ring. Telekinetic control over the thermal energy. Pyrokinesis. Inko broke down. She collapsed onto the bed, burying her face in the sheets near Izuku's hip. I'm sorry! She wailed. I'm so sorry, Izuku. Mom? Why are you apologizing? Izuku asked, patting her back with his good hand. I told you to give up. She cried, her voice muffled. For 10 years. I told you it wasn't possible. I made you feel like something was broken. I should have believed. If I had believed, maybe it would have happened sooner. Maybe you wouldn't have been so lonely. Izuku felt a lump form in his throat. He looked at the green flame still dancing on his finger. It's okay, Mom, he whispered, tears spilling over his own cheeks. You were just trying to protect me. All Might watched the scene from the corner, his heart aching. This was the reality of the superhuman society. Labels defined existence. Quirkless. Hero. Late bloomer. Mrs. Midoriya, Recovery Girl said softly after a moment. This changes things. Izuku is now classified as a late bloomer. It will require registration with the government, and it means his body is going through significant changes to adapt to this new power. He will need high-calorie diets, fire-resistant clothing, and patience. Inko sat up, wiping her eyes. She looked at her son, really looked at him, seeing the bandages and the fire. You have a quirk, she said, a trembling smile appearing. You can be a hero. I can, Izuku said. He looked at All Might. I really can. But All Might's expression wasn't one of triumph. It was a mask of concern. You can, his eyes seemed to say. But can you survive it? 1 week later, the transition back to daily life was jarring. Izuku was discharged the next day with a pair of crutches and a heavy sling for his arm. The ride home was quiet. The apartment felt different, though nothing had changed. The first problem was the temperature. Izuku was constantly hot. Inko had to crank the air conditioning down to 18 degrees Celsius, shivering in a sweater while Izuku sat in shorts and a tank top, sweating. He melted 3 toothbrushes in 4 days. He found that if he gripped things too tightly while emotional, his palms would heat up rapidly. The plastic handle of his toothbrush had simply drooped and snapped in his hand while he was stressing about the exam results. Then there was the hunger. The engine demanded fuel. He ate double his usual portions. Inko was delighted to cook for him, making vast quantities of katsudon, but she watched him with a nervous hawk eye, waiting for him to burst into flames. He didn't leave the house. He couldn't face the world yet. He certainly couldn't face Bakugo. Kaken, Izuku thought, lying on his bed and staring at his All Might posters. He had checked the hero forums. The rumors were already flying. Did you see the kid at Battle Center B? Green explosion guy? Heard he took out the 0-pointer. Is he Endeavor's kid? The fire was weird. Bakugo would have seen it. Or heard about it. The thought of facing his childhood friend made Izuku's stomach churn. Bakugo hated liars. He would think Izuku had been mocking him for a decade. I need to explain it to him, Izuku thought. But I can't explain one for all. So I have to tell a half-truth. A dormant quirk. A late bloom. It sounded like a lie even to his own ears. He tried to train. He went to the backyard when Inko was shopping. He tried to summon the fire again. It was difficult. Without the adrenaline of the villain bot or the overflow of One for All, the fire was stubborn. He could make sparks. He could heat up his hands until they smoked. But that roaring, dragon-like power he felt at the exam? It was locked away behind a heavy door, and he didn't dare touch one for all. The memory of his bones snapping was too fresh. All Might said they are separate, Izuku analyzed, muttering to the empty air. One for all is the stockpile. The fire is the genetic mutation. If I use OFA, it boosts the fire. But if I use the fire, does it drain OFA? Or does it use my own stamina? Recovery girl said I need calories. So the fire is biological. OFA is energy. I have to learn to drive 2 cars at once. He looked at his scarred hand. The skin was rougher now. Pinkish scar tissue wove through his palm and up his forearm, looking like lightning bolts frozen in flesh. Gasoline and a bonfire, he whispered. The day of the letter. The week dragged on. Every time the mail arrived, Izuku's heart stopped. He sat at the dinner table, poking at his fish. Inko was pacing in the kitchen. It should be here by now, she muttered. Do you think, maybe the injury disqualified you? Or the property damage? Maybe, Izuku said hollowly. I mean, I destroyed a robot that cost as much as a house. And I got 0 combat points. But you saved that girl. Inko argued. That doesn't count on the score sheet, Mom. The doorbell rang. Both of them froze. Inko rushed to the door. She returned a moment later, holding a heavy, wax-sealed envelope with the UA crest. Izuku, she whispered, handing it to him as if it were a bomb. Izuku took it. It felt heavy. I'll be in my room. He walked to his bedroom, his legs feeling like lead. He sat at his desk. He took a deep breath. He tore the seal. A metal disc slid out onto the desk. A hologram projector? Bzzzt. A light shot up, projecting a screen into the air. I am here as a projection. All Might's voice filled the small room. He was in his Silver Age costume, posing dramatically against the yellow background. All Might? Izuku gasped. Wait, this is from UA? Yes. I am in town because I have come to teach at UA. The hologram shouted. Izuku's jaw dropped. He's a teacher? That's why he was here. The hologram All Might dropped the pose and leaned into the camera. His voice dropped an octave, becoming more serious. Young Midoriya. It has been a long week. I know you are healing. I know you are afraid. Izuku gripped his knees. You faced the exam with a power you did not understand. You broke your body to do what was right. You are looking at your score, thinking you failed because you acquired 0 villain points. The screen shifted. A scoreboard appeared. Izuku Midoriya, villain points 0. 0, Izuku whispered. I knew it. But... All Might shouted. A hero's job is not just to destroy. It is to save. How could a hero course reject someone who saves others and risks their own life to do so? The video changed. It showed the clip of Uraraka in the office, pleading with President Mike. Please! Give him some of my points. He saved me. Izuku started to cry. You acted without hesitation, All Might said. And that action spurred others to action. In a job where lives are at stake, the ability to inspire is the greatest power of all. The scoreboard updated. Rescue points, 60. Total, 60. 60 points. All Might roared. A passing score. You did it, Izuku Midoriya. You are part of the hero course. Then, the pre-recorded segment ended. The screen flickered, and All Might seemed to look directly at Izuku, breaking the fourth wall of the recording. It was a separate clip, added later. However, the hologram said, the tone somber. We must address the elephant in the room. Or rather the dragon. Izuku wiped his eyes, listening intently. You have passed. But you are entering UA with a target on your back and a volatile power in your veins. The teachers are curious. The students will be suspicious. And your body is a battleground. All Might pointed a finger at the camera. Come to the beach tomorrow at dawn. We need to start over. You have the vessel. Now we must fireproof it. Welcome to your hero academia, my boy. The hologram faded. Izuku sat in the dark, the afterimage of the light burning in his retinas. He looked at his hand. He clenched it into a fist. I passed, he whispered. Then louder. Mom! I passed. The sun was just cresting the horizon, bathing Dagoba Beach in gold. The garbage was gone, but the memory of the struggle remained in the shifting sands. Izuku stood by the water, waiting. He wore a baggy t-shirt and shorts, his arms still in a light brace. "You're early." All Might walked down the steps from the street. He was in his true form, wearing a jagged yellow suit that hung loosely on him. He carried 2 cups of coffee. "I couldn't sleep," Izuku admitted. All Might handed him a coffee. "Decaf. Caffeine might spike your heart rate. We need to keep that engine cool." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the waves. "Recovery girl cleared you for light exercise," All Might said. "But no smashes." "Not yet. Your bones are still knitting." "All Might," Izuku said, looking down at the sand. Am I a mistake?" All Might choked on his coffee. "What? You gave me this power because I was quirkless. Because I was an empty vessel. But I wasn't empty. I was clogged. And now I have this fire that hurts me, and I can't use one for all without exploding. Maybe you should have given it to Mirio Togata. Or someone strong." All Might set his cup down on a concrete barrier. He turned to Izuku and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Izuku," he said firmly. "Do you know why I chose you? Because I moved when no one else did? That was the catalyst." All Might nodded. "But I chose you because of your heart. Quirks are just tools. Physical abilities. But the spirit? That is rare." He tapped Izuku's chest, right over his heart. "Yes, the situation has changed. You are not the empty vessel I thought you were. You are something new. Something unprecedented. The 9th holder with a native quirk." All Might sighed, looking out at the ocean. "My master, Nana Shimura, she had a quirk. Float. And one for all. She managed it. But she was born with hers active. You are awakening both simultaneously." He looked back at Izuku, his eyes burning with blue intensity. "It will be harder for you than anyone before. You have to master 2 beasts. The roaring fire of your father, and the stockpiled storm of one for all. If you let them mix uncontrolled, you will burn out." He held up 2 fingers. "Separation. That is your goal. You must build a mental wall. Fire on the left. Power on the right. Never cross the streams until your body can handle the voltage." Izuku nodded, absorbing the lesson. Separation. But All Might smiled, the signature grin returning to his gaunt face. "Think of the potential, young Midoriya. You have the power to smash through any obstacle, and the flame to light the way for others. You are not a mistake. You are an evolution." He held out his fist. "We have 3 weeks until the semester starts. We aren't building muscles anymore. Now we are building a fireplace." Izuku looked at the fist. He looked at his own scarred hand. He felt the warmth under his skin, not painful now, but comforting. A part of him. He bumped his fist against All Might's. "Right." As their knuckles touched, a tiny spark of green fire jumped from Izuku's hand, startled by the contact. It sizzled in the morning air. All Might flinched, shaking his hand. "Hot. See? Control, my boy. Control." Izuku laughed, the sound free and light. For the first time in 10 years, he wasn't looking at the ground. He was looking at the horizon. He was late to the party. But he had finally arrived. The uniform didn't fit right. It wasn't a matter of tailoring. The Yui blazer, with its stiff gray fabric and gold buttons, was perfectly sized for Izuku Midoriya's frame. The problem was the temperature. To Izuku, the standard issue polyester blend felt like wearing a suit of wool in the middle of the Sahara Desert. He stood on the platform of the train station, clutching the strap of his yellow backpack. It was a crisp April morning. Commuters around him were wearing light jackets, enjoying the spring breeze. Izuku, however, was sweating. A thin sheen of perspiration coated his forehead, and he could feel the dampness gathering at the small of his back. Underneath his white dress shirt, he was wearing a specialized undershirt Recovery Girl had ordered for him. It was lined with pockets containing chemical cooling gel packs, the kind you crack to activate. He had cracked 4 of them before leaving the house. They were already turning lukewarm. "Control the engine," he recited mentally. "Keep the idle low." Since the entrance exam, his body had become a biological furnace. The dormant quirk factor, now rudely awakened by the sledgehammer of One for All, was constantly humming in the background. It was a low-grade fever that never broke. If he got excited, he got hot. If he got nervous, he got hotter. And right now, standing before his first day at the greatest hero school in the world, Izuku was very, very nervous. He checked his reflection in the train window. He looked normal enough, if you ignored the faint, nervous tremor in his hands and the heavy bandaging on his right arm. The scars from the zero-pointer incident were hidden beneath the dressings, but the memory of the green fire was etched into his mind. Midoriya Izuku, he whispered to his reflection. Quirk, pyrokinesis. Type emitter. Registration date, last week. It was the lie he had to live. The smoke and mirrors act. To the world, he was a late bloomer whose power had sparked under extreme stress. To All Might, he was a vessel that was leaking fuel. The train arrived with a rush of wind. Izuku stepped on, praying he wouldn't melt the plastic handles. The sheer scale of UA High never failed to intimidate. The hallways were wide enough for giants, the windows towering walls of glass. Izuku navigated the labyrinth, checking the map on his phone every 10 seconds. 1A. 1A. He found the door. It was massive, easily 10 feet tall. A barrier for behemoths. Izuku stood before it, his heart hammering against his ribs. The heat in his chest spiked. He felt a bead of sweat roll down his temple. Who's in there? The scary elite? The guy with the glasses? And him. He hadn't spoken to Katsuki Bakugo since the exam. He hadn't even seen him. But he knew the silence was deceptive. It was the receding tide before a tsunami. I can't be afraid, Izuku told himself, clenching his fist. A tiny wisp of green smoke curled from his knuckles. He shook his hand frantically to disperse it. Cool down. Cool down. He slid the door open. Don't put your feet on the desk. Huh! It is disrespectful to the upperclassmen who sat here before us, and to the craftsmen who built the desk. Shut up, Four Eyes. What junior high did you go to? The Stick-Up-Your-Ass Academy. Izuku froze. The scene was exactly as he had feared. Tenya Ida, the engine-legged boy from the entrance exam, was lecturing Bakugo, who was lounging with his feet up on the desk like he owned the building. Bakugo looked different. His uniform was disheveled, his tie loose. But it was his eyes that caught Izuku. They were sharp, red, and currently focused on Ida with lazy disdain. Then Ida turned. Ah. You. The room went silent. Every head turned toward the door. Ida marched toward him, his movements stiff and robotic. I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy. I heard, Izuku stammered. I'm Midoriya. Izuku. Midoriya, Ida said, adjusting his glasses. I misjudged you at the entrance exam. I thought you were merely a disruption, but you perceived the true nature of the test, the rescue component, and you possess the power to act on it, albeit at great cost to yourself. Ida bowed perfectly at a 90-degree angle. I was wrong. You were the superior candidate. No, I really wasn't. Izuku waved his hands, panicking. I just reacted. Hey! It's the messy-haired boy. A familiar, bubbly face popped up behind Ida. Ochako Uraraka beamed at him. You made it. I was so worried about your arm. That explosion was crazy. It was all FWOM and green fire. At the mention of green fire, the temperature in the room seemed to drop, or maybe it was just the chill coming from the back of the class. Izuku felt eyes on him. Slowly, terrifyingly, he turned his head. Bakugo was staring at him. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't making explosions in his palms. He was just sitting there, his feet still on the desk, staring with an expression that was unreadable. It wasn't the usual rage. It was something colder. Calculation. Bakugo's eyes dropped to Izuku's bandaged arm, then back to his face. He knows, Izuku thought, his stomach twisting. He thinks I played him for a fool. If you're here to make friends, you can pack up and leave. The voice came from the floor. Izuku jumped, nearly activating his quirk in surprise. Lying in a yellow sleeping bag outside the door, looking for all the world like a gargantuan caterpillar, was a man. He stood up, unzipping the bag to reveal a disheveled man in black, with tired eyes and a capture scarf around his neck. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, the man deadpan. Time is limited. You kids are not rational enough. He stepped into the room. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Homeroom teacher? The class mentally screamed. He looks like a hobo. Aizawa reached into his sleeping bag and pulled out a blue gym uniform. Put these on and meet me on the P grounds. The locker room. The boys' locker room was a chaos of changing students. Izuku tried to change quickly, turning toward the corner to hide his body, but it was impossible to be invisible. Whoa dude, a boy with electric yellow hair, Kaminari, said, pausing with his shirt half on. Your arm. That looks gnarly. Izuku looked down. The bandages were off for the moment, as he switched to the gym uniform. His right arm was a map of trauma. The skin was discolored, patches of pink and white scar tissue weaving through the muscle. But the strangest part was the veins. They didn't look blue. They looked dark, almost charcoal-colored, tracing the path where the fire had erupted from his bone marrow. Yeah, a short boy with purple balls for hair. Mineta shuddered. You look like you high-fived a volcano. It's the side effect, Izuku mumbled, pulling the blue tracksuit jacket on quickly. My quirk creates a lot of heat. It burns me if I'm not careful. Man, that's metal. A boy with elbows shaped like tape dispensers, Ciro, grinned. I just shoot tape. You literally burn yourself to fight? That's hardcore. In the corner, Bakugo slammed his locker shut. The metal clanged, echoing loudly in the small room. He didn't say a word. He just walked out, shouldering past Izuku hard enough to make him stumble. Izuku rubbed his shoulder. The heat under his skin flared, a defensive reaction. He took a deep breath, visualizing a bucket of ice water. Don't let him get to you. Focus on the separation. Fire on the left. Power on the right. The P grounds. The class gathered on the dirt field. The sun was high now, and Izuku was already regretting the long sleeves of the gym uniform. He felt like a baked potato wrapped in foil. A quirk apprehension test? The class chorused. What about the entrance ceremony? The guidance sessions? Uraraka asked. If you want to be a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events, Aizawa said, his back turned to them. UA's selling point is freedom. That applies to the teachers as well. He turned to face them, his bloodshot eyes scanning the group. Softball throw. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. Endurance running. Grip strength. Upper body training. Seated toe touch. Standard test you did in junior high. But you were never allowed to use your quirks. He tossed the softball to Bakugo. Bakugo. You finished first in the entrance exam. What was your softball throw record in junior high? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Try it with your quirk, Aizawa ordered. Do whatever you want, just stay in the circle. Bakugo walked to the circle. He stretched his arms, a feral grin finally breaking his stoic mask. I'll show them, Bakugo thought. I'll show that lying Deku what a real quirk looks like. Dai! Boom! The explosion was massive. The ball rocketed into the sky, trailing smoke. Aizawa held up a device. 705.2 meters. Whoa! Kaminari cheered. 700 meters? That's awesome. We can use our quirks as much as we want? Mina Ashido squealed. This is gonna be so fun. Fun? Aizawa's voice cut through the excitement like a knife. He lowered the device. The air grew heavy. You have 3 years to become heroes. Will you have an attitude like that the whole time? Aizawa smiled, a wide, predatory expression that didn't reach his eyes. All right. Whoever comes in last place in all 8 tests will be judged to have no potential. He lifted his hair, revealing his face fully, and will be punished with expulsion. What? The panic was instant. Izuku felt the blood drain from his face. Expulsion? On the first day. Welcome to UA's hero course, Aizawa said. Izuku looked at his hands. They were trembling. I can't control one for all yet, he realized with dawning horror. If I use it, I break my bones. If I break my bones, I can't do the other tests. I'll come in last. I have to use the fire. But the fire was wild. Untamed. He was a man trying to water a garden with a fire hose. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Izuku was paired against Bakugo. Of course he was. They stood at the starting line. The robot camera focused on them. Readied. Bakugo glanced at him. Don't hold back, Deku. Or I'll kill you. Start. Boom. Bakugo launched himself backward with explosions, flying down the track. Izuku gritted his teeth. Channel the heat. Feet. He pushed the thermal energy to his soles. He tried to release a concentrated jet, like Iron Man's thrusters. Whoosh. Green flames erupted from his shoes. But instead of a clean launch, it was a chaotic burst. It propelled him forward, yes, but he had no balance. He flailed, his feet sliding on the melting rubber of his sneakers. He looked more like a rocket spiraling out of control than a runner. He stumbled across the line, trailing green smoke. 7.02 seconds, the robot announced. Bakugo had landed at 4.13 seconds. Bakugo turned back, sneering. What was that? A sparkler? I thought you took down a zero-pointer. Izuku patted his smoking shoes, frantically trying to put out the small fires on his laces. It's hard to aim. Aizawa watched, scribbling on his clipboard. Power is high. Stability is abysmal. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku held the digital dynamometer. Just squeeze. Don't burn it. He squeezed. He tried to use a little bit of one for all, just 1%, but the fear of breaking his fingers made him hesitate. Instead, his stress triggered the heat. The machine beeped. 56 kilograms. Average. But when he handed it back, the plastic casing was warped and soft, retaining the imprint of his fingers. The screen was glitching from the heat. You owe the school a new grip tester, Aizawa muttered, tossing the ruined device into a bin. Test 3, standing long jump. Izuku tried to use a burst of fire from his back to push him forward. Bang! The green explosion sent him flying, clearing the sandbox entirely. But he had no landing strategy. He tumbled, rolling face first into the grass, scorching a line of turf as he skidded. Distance cleared, Aizawa noted. Landing failed. Test 4, repeated side steps. This was a disaster. Izuku couldn't use fire for agility. He was just a kid in a tracksuit moving side to side. I'm falling behind, Izuku panicked. He looked at the scoreboard in his mind. I'm mediocre. I'm just a guy with a dangerous quirk he can't use. He looked at All Might, who was hiding around the corner of the building, watching. All Might gave a small, supportive fist pump. Separation, Izuku thought. I'm not separating them. I'm panicking. Test 5, the ball throw. The sun was beginning to dip, casting long shadows across the field. The class had gone through their throws. Uraraka had gotten infinity. Bakugo had his 700 meters. Midoriya, Aizawa called. Izuku walked to the circle. The soft ball felt heavy in his hand. His palm was sweating so much the leather was slick. The class watched in silence. They had seen flashes of his power, the green fire, the smoke, but nothing impressive. Nothing that explained how he got into the hero course. He's struggling, Ida whispered to Uraraka. His quirk seems to be detrimental to his own body. You can do it, Deku! Uraraka cheered. Izuku stood in the circle. He closed his eyes. Okay. If I use one for all on my whole arm, it breaks. Game over. If I use just the fire, I melt the ball or it flies wildly. I need to combine them. He remembered the feeling at the beach. The ignition. Use one for all to throw. Use the fire to boost. He pulled his arm back. He felt the hum of one for all, the lightning. He felt the roar of the fire, the dragon. He tried to push them both out at once. Smash! He threw the ball. It flew, 46 meters. There was no boom. No fire. Just a weak toss. Huh! Izuku blinked. But I felt it. I erased your quirk. Izuku turned. Aizawa stood there, his scarf floating around him as if caught in an updraft. His hair was standing on end, and his eyes glowed a piercing red. That entrance exam was definitely not rational enough, Aizawa said, his voice dropping to a growl. Even a kid like you was accepted. You're the Erasure hero, Eraserhead. Izuku gasped. Eraser? I don't know him, some of the students muttered. Aizawa stepped into the circle, invading Izuku's personal space. I saw what happened at the exam. You broke your bones and nearly cooked yourself alive. You can't control your power. I'm trying to learn. Izuku protested. Do you intend to become incapacitated again and have someone else save you? Aizawa asked. There is an old story about a hero who saved 1,000 people by himself. You have his courage, perhaps, but you are a liability. If you save one person and then collapse from heatstroke or broken bones, you are useless for the next crisis. Aizawa's scarf tightened. Whatever this power is, this volatile mix of strength and fire, it's too big for you. You're like a toddler playing with a nuclear warhead. He closed his eyes. His hair fell. The red glow faded. I've returned your quirk. You have one throw left. Get it over with so I can expel you. Izuku stood there, the words stinging like a slap. Liability. Useless. He looked at the ball in his hand. He's right. If I go all out, I die. If I hold back, I fail. Think. All Might's advice, separation. Recovery Girl's diagnosis. The fire acts as a splint. It cauterizes. An idea sparked. He didn't need to use one for all on his whole arm. And he didn't need to engulf his whole body in fire. He focused on the tip of his right index finger. Concentrate the stockpile there. Just the tip, and then the fire. He visualized a jet engine. An afterburner. He didn't need the fire to be the hit. He needed the fire to propel the hit. He stepped back into the circle. He's gonna get expelled, Bakugo muttered. He's useless, Izuku wound up. He moved like a whip. One for all, 5%. Green pyrokinesis. Focus point index finger. As his arm came forward, he channeled the energy. Just as the ball was about to leave his fingertips, he released the snap of one for all. Smash. And simultaneously, he ignited the air behind the ball. Ignition. The result was deafening. A sonic boom cracked across the field, accompanied by a blinding flash of emerald light. The heat wave hit the students standing 20 meters away, blowing their hair back like a hairdryer on max setting. The ball didn't just fly, it vanished. It tore through the air, leaving a trail of green smoke and distorted, shimmering heat haze. Izuku stood in the circle. His right index finger was purple and broken, hanging limp. But the tip was smoking, the skin blackened but not bleeding. The fire had cauterized the break instantly. He turned to Aizawa. He was breathing hard, sweat dripping from his chin, steam rising from his shoulders. He clenched his fist, leaving the broken finger extended. I'm still standing, Sensei. Aizawa looked at the device in his hand. He stared at it for a long second. Then, a slow, creepy smile spread across his face. He turned the screen to Izuku. 705.3 meters. He had beaten Bakugo by 10 centimeters. So you are, Aizawa said. Impressive. The explosion. The silence broke. Over 700 meters? The class screamed. He beat Bakugo's record. Did you see that green flash? It was like a laser, but one person wasn't cheering. Katsuki Bakugo stood frozen. His mind was racing, processing the data. 700 meters. The finger. The power. It wasn't just the fire. The fire was the flashiness. But the force, that was the same force All Might used. The same force Deku had used on the robot. And the fire. Deku had never had fire. Not when they were 4. Not when they were 10. He lied to me. The thought consumed him. He watched me. He watched me brag. He watched me train. He watched me aim for the top. And he was laughing at me the whole time. Hiding this power. Saving it. A guttural growl ripped from Bakugo's throat. DKU. Izuku flinched, turning just in time to see Bakugo charging at him. Explosions crackled in his palms. You bastard! Tell me how you did that. Since when do you have a quirk? Izuku was terrified. He raised his arms. Wish. Aizawa's capture scarf snapped out like a viper. It wrapped around Bakugo's torso, binding his arms to his sides. It yanked him back, halting his charge mid-stride. Gah! What the hell is this cloth? Bakugo thrashed, trying to ignite his sweat, but nothing happened. It's a capture weapon made of carbon fiber and a special metal alloy, Aizawa droned, his hair standing up again. And don't make me use my quirk so much. I have dry eye. Let me go! Bakugo roared, glaring at Izuku. He's a liar! He's been lying for 10 years. We're wasting time, Aizawa said, releasing Bakugo. The boy stumbled back, panting, his eyes wild. Aizawa stepped between them. Midoriya acted within the parameters of the test. If you have a problem with his late blooming, take it up with the administration. Now, prepare for the next event. Bakugo stood there, vibrating with rage. He looked at Izuku, who was clutching his broken finger, looking small and terrified. I won't forget this, Bakugo's eyes promised. I will burn you for this. The results. The rest of the tests were a blur of pain for Izuku. His finger throbbed. His body temperature was dangerously high. He did poorly on the sit-ups because his core was cramping from the heat. Finally, the sun set. The class gathered around the hologram projector. The results, Aizawa said. The total is simply the aggregate of your scores. He pressed a button. The list appeared. 1. Momo Yaoyorozu. 2. Shoto Todoroki. 3. Katsuki Bakugo. 20. Minoru Mineta. Izuku scanned the list frantically. 19. Izuku Midoriya. He wasn't last. He had made it. Just barely. His ball throw had saved him from the bottom. Mineta shrieked. No way! I'm expelled? But I just got here. The harem. My dreams, Aizawa smirked. By the way, I was lying about the expulsion. Silence. It was a rational deception to draw out the upper limits of your quirks. What? The class screamed. Of course it was a lie, the tall girl with the ponytail Yaoyorozu said confidently. It was obvious if you thought about it. No, it wasn't. Izuku, Uraraka, and Ida thought in unison. That was a little unnerving, Sero sighed. Aizawa turned to walk away. Change clothes and find your syllabus in the classroom. Midoriya. Izuku froze. Why yes, sensei? Aizawa tossed a slip of paper at him. Go to recovery, girl. Get that finger fixed. And do something about your cooling system. You're steaming up my field. Yes, sir. As the class dispersed, heading back to the locker rooms, Izuku lingered for a moment. He looked at his score. 19th place. But he was here. He looked at his broken finger. The green char was ugly, but it was proof. Proof he had found a way. Hey, Izuku turned. It was the boy with the half-white, half-red hair. Shoto Todoroki. He had placed second without breaking a sweat. Todoroki was staring at Izuku's hand. His face was impassive, but his eyes were intense. Heterochromatic, one gray, one blue. That fire, Todoroki said quietly. It's not normal. Izuku blinked. You no. I guess not. It feels hungry, Todoroki said, almost to himself. He looked Izuku in the eye. Just like him. Before Izuku could ask who he was, Todoroki turned and walked away, leaving a trail of cold air in his wake. Izuku shivered, the cold feeling good against his overheated skin. Just like who? He shook his head and ran toward the nurse's office. Corner of the school building. All Might watched from the shadows as the students filed back inside. Aizawa, he whispered. You liar. You actually intended to expel someone, didn't you? You expelled an entire class last year. Aizawa walked past the corner, not stopping. That Midoriya kid. All Might stiffened. Yes? He's reckless, Aizawa said. He has zero control. His body is a contradiction. He breaks and burns at the same time. Aizawa paused, but he continued, looking up at the darkening sky. He was the only one who didn't accept the limitation of zero potential. He found a loophole in his own biology. There's a strangeness to him. Late bloomer doesn't quite cover it. He glanced at All Might. Don't coddle him, All Might. If that fire gets too big, it will consume him. And everyone around him. Aizawa walked away. All Might looked at his hand, clenching it. He remembered the feeling of the green fire when they fist bumped. It was warm. Embers, All Might thought. They are just embers now. But wind makes fire grow. And UA is a hurricane. The waiting room for the bus to the testing grounds felt like a pressure cooker. Or perhaps that was just Izuku. He tugged at the collar of his costume. It was a masterpiece of affection and engineering, sewn by his mother with amateur but loving hands, and then reinforced by the support companies UA contracted. The green jumpsuit was thick, designed to be fire-resistant, a last-minute modification Inko had practically begged for over the phone after the late bloomer diagnosis. It had cooling vents under the arms and along the ribs. The gloves were white and thick, padded to reduce the recoil of one for all, though Izuku doubted they could stop his bones from turning to dust if he lost control again. And then there was the mask. The bunny-eared cowl that was meant to honor All Might's hair tufts, though it looked more like a green rabbit to everyone else. Midoriya, your costume is practical, Uraraka commented, walking up to him. She was wearing a skin-tight pink and black suit that made Izuku's face flush a deep crimson. You Uraraka. Why yours is, very aerodynamic, he squeaked, turning away to hide the steam that was literally beginning to rise from his ears. I should have been more specific with my design request, she sighed, scratching her head. It's really tight. But hey, look at Ida. Tenya Ida looked like a sleek, devastating mechanite. Function over form, he declared, chopping the air. These exhaust pipes will allow for maximum engine efficiency. Izuku smiled weakly. Everyone looked amazing. They looked like heroes. And then there was Bakugo. He stood near the exit, his back to the group. His costume was terrifying. Black tank top, baggy pants tucked into combat boots, and massive, grenade-shaped gauntlets on his forearms. Even from the back, he radiated a murderous aura that made the air around him feel heavy. He hadn't looked at Izuku once since the Quirk assessment test. Not since Aizawa had wrapped him in that scarf. The silence was worse than the yelling. It was the silence of a bomb counting down. All right, Zygotes. All Might's voice boomed as he marched into the room, wearing his Silver Age cape. The bus is here. To ground beta. We are going to conduct battle trials. Ground beta. The facility was a mock city, similar to the entrance exam but denser. An urban jungle of concrete designed for close-quarters combat. All Might stood on a podium in the monitoring room. The class gathered around him. The scenario is simple. All Might bellowed, pulling a cheat sheet from his pocket. Villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in the hideout. The heroes must enter, locate the weapon, and either capture the villains or touch the weapon to secure it. The villains must protect the weapon or capture the heroes. He held up 2 boxes. Teams will be decided by lottery. Izuku's heart sank. Please not him. Please not him. Anyone but him. He drew a ball. Team A. Uraraka drew a ball. Team A. Yay! We're together again. Uraraka cheered, high-fiving him. Izuku breathed a sigh of relief. Yeah. Let's do our B. Team D. All Might announced. Bakugo Katsuki and Tenya Ida. Izuku froze. He looked at the monitor. First match. Team A heroes versus Team D villains. Fate, it seemed, had a cruel sense of humor. Bakugo turned slowly. His red eyes locked onto Izuku's. He didn't yell. He didn't smirk. He just bared his teeth in a silent snarl that promised pain. Young Bakugo. Young Ida. Head to the building and set up. All Might ordered. Young Midoriya. Young Uraraka. You have 5 minutes to plan your entry. The entry. The building was a 5-story concrete brutalist structure. Dark windows stared down at them like empty eye sockets. Izuku stood at the front door, checking his map. His hands were shaking. Midoriya? Uraraka placed a hand on his shoulder. You're trembling. Is it the heat again? No, Izuku whispered. It's Kaken. Bakugo? Uraraka tilted her head. He's scary, yeah? But you beat him in the ball throw. You have a quirk now, right? That cool green fire. That's the problem, Izuku said, clutching his chest. Kaken, he's known me my whole life. Since we were in diapers. And for every single day of those years I was quirkless. I was the weakling who followed him around. I was the pebble on the side of the road. He looked up at the dark windows on the 3rd floor. He thinks I lied to him. He thinks I spent 10 years mocking him by pretending to be weak, just to humiliate him now. He doesn't care about the bomb, Uraraka. He's going to come for me. He's going to try to kill me. Uraraka looked at him, her expression hardening. Then we have to win. For the assignment, and to show him you're not a pebble. Start. All Might's voice rang over the loudspeakers. Okay, Izuku took a deep breath. Separation. Fire on the left. Power on the right. Let's go. They entered through a window on the first floor. The hallways were dim, smelling of dust and old cement. They moved quietly. Izuku took point, his senses dialed up to 11. He won't wait at the weapon, Izuku analyzed rapidly. Ida is diligent. He'll stay to guard the objective. But Kaken, he's a hunter. He'll want to end this immediately. He'll attack from a blind spot. Check the corners, Izuku whispered. They reached a T-junction. Die. It wasn't a surprise. Izuku had felt the shift in air pressure a split second before the scream. Bakugo flew out from the right corridor, his palm glowing orange. He wasn't aiming for a capture. He was aiming a right hook straight at Izuku's face. Izuku didn't think. His body moved on the memory of 1,000 beatings, but this time, he had the engine. Heat. He channeled the thermal energy into his legs. He didn't try to fly. He just wanted a burst of speed. Whoosh. Green flames kicked out from his heels. It wasn't graceful, but it shoved Izuku sideways, tackling Uraraka out of the blast zone. Boom! The explosion scorched the wall where Izuku's head had been a millisecond ago. Smoke filled the hallway. You're fast now, huh? Bakugo's voice came from the smoke, dripping with venom. Did you practice that too? While you were pretending to be a quirkless loser? Izuku coughed, standing up and putting himself between Bakugo and Uraraka. Uraraka, go! Find the weapon! I'll hold him off. But, go! Uraraka nodded, touched herself to float, and sprinted down the left hallway. Bakugo started to chase her. Oh no you don't, round face. Izuku stepped forward. He raised his right hand. He didn't use one for all. He focused purely on the mutation. The dragon. He envisioned a flamethrower. Kaken! Look at me! A stream of emerald fire erupted from Izuku's palm. It wasn't a solid beam, but a washing wave of heat that cut off Bakugo's path. Bakugo skidded to a halt, shielding his face. The heat was intense, curling the ends of his spiky ash-blonde hair. He swiped his hand, using an explosion to disperse the flames. When the smoke cleared, he wasn't looking at Uraraka anymore. He was looking at Izuku. Finally, Bakugo whispered. You stopped running. He walked forward, small explosions popping in his hands like firecrackers. Pup pup pup. Tell me, Deku, Bakugo said, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. Was it fun? Watching me talk about being the best? Watching me aim for all might? While you sat there with this power, laughing at me? I wasn't! Izuku yelled, backing up. I told you. I didn't know. It was dormant. It just, shut up, Bakugo lunged. He swung his right arm for a massive explosion. Izuku knew this move. He had seen it 100 times in the park. A right swing lead. He always starts with the right. Izuku ducked. He grabbed Bakugo's forearm with his left hand. The heat in Izuku's grip was searing. Capture tape. Izuku tried to wrap the tape around Bakugo's arm, but Bakugo was too fast. He spun, using the momentum to launch a kick at Izuku's ribs. Izuku blocked with his right arm, the armored one. Crack. The impact sent Izuku sliding back. His arm throbbed. You have good reflexes, Bakugo spat. For a liar. He came again. Explosion. Kick. Explosion. Izuku was on the defensive. He couldn't find an opening. Every time he tried to use his fire, Bakugo blasted through it. Bakugo's quirk was concise, forceful. Izuku's fire was wild, fluid, and hard to aim without burning the whole building down. I need to use one for all, Izuku thought. Just a little. Like the ball throw, Bakugo charged again. Izuku planted his feet. He channeled one for all into his legs for stability, and into his right arm for power. 5%. But just as he prepared to punch, Bakugo changed trajectory. He used the blast behind him to propel himself over Izuku's head, spinning in midair to blast Izuku's back. Too slow. Boom. Izuku was thrown forward, crashing into the concrete wall. His costume was singed. His back felt like it was on fire. Is that it? Bakugo taunted, landing lightly. Is that the power that beat the 0-pointer? Use it, Deku! Use it! Monitoring room. This is getting out of hand, Kirishima said, gripping the back of the chair. Bakugo looks like he wants to kill him. Bakugo's combat sense is incredible, All Might noted, though his voice was tight. He is using his quirk for mobility and offense seamlessly. Young Midoriya is hesitant. Midoriya is afraid of hurting him, Momo Yayorozu observed. Or perhaps afraid of hurting himself. We saw what happens when he loses control. Sir, shouldn't you stop this? Kaminari asked. All Might held the microphone. Young Midoriya, you need to stand your ground. You are not a victim anymore. Continue. All Might ordered. But Bakugo. If you use a lethal attack, I will end the match. The conflict. Izuku peeled himself off the wall. He was breathing heavily. The heat inside him was rising. His vision had a green tint at the edges. Why won't you listen to me? Izuku pleaded. I never looked down on you. You were amazing. You are amazing. That's why I wanted to be a hero too. I wanted to be like you. Don't you dare compare yourself to me. Bakugo roared. You think because you got some lucky fire power you can stand on my level? You're a rock. A pebble. He raised his right arm. He reached for the pin on his grenade gauntlet. Kaken, wait! Izuku's eyes widened. The exam. You're not supposed to use support gear that destroys the building. He won't die if he dodges. Bakugo yelled. Young Bakugo, stop! All Might shouted over the comms. Are you trying to kill him? Bakugo didn't listen. The rage had consumed him. The humiliation of the ball throw, the shock of the quirk, the 10 years of feeling like he was being haunted by a ghost who was suddenly real. He pulled the pin. Click. Izuku saw the spark. He saw the fluid in the gauntlet ignite. It was a massive stockpile of nitroglycerin sweat. A shaped charge meant to level walls. Time slowed down. Izuku knew he couldn't dodge. The hallway was too narrow. He couldn't outrun the blast wave. I have to block it. But how? One for all isn't a shield. It's a hammer. The fire. Mom's telekinesis. Dad's breath. Recovery girl said I can shape it. Control the thermal energy. Don't just burn. Build. Izuku threw his hands out. He screamed, a primal sound that tore at his throat. Inside him, the dragon woke up fully. Wall of flame. A torrent of green fire erupted from Izuku's entire body. It didn't shoot forward like a beam. It swirled, twisting under his mental command. It formed a dense, rotating barrier of superheated plasma directly in front of him. Then, the explosion hit. Boom. The sound was deafening. The building shook to its foundations. But then, physics took over. Bakugo's explosion was fueled by nitroglycerin, a chemical compound. Izuku's fire was a biological, high-intensity thermal reaction that burned at temperatures far exceeding normal fire. When the high-pressure explosion met the wall of superheated green plasma, something catastrophic happened. The green fire didn't just block the explosion, it consumed it. The heat was so intense it ignited the unburnt particulates in Bakugo's blast, causing a secondary, thermobaric reaction. The hallway turned into a white-hot oven. Af! Bakugo screamed, blown backward by the recoil of his own attack combined with the shockwave of the fire. Izuku was thrown back too, hitting the floor hard. The smoke was thick, black and green mixed together. The sprinklers on the ceiling shattered, spraying water that instantly turned to steam, making the hallway a sauna. Izuku pushed himself up. His costume was scorched. His mask was half burned away, revealing his terrified eye. The smoke cleared slightly. The wall of the hallway was gone. Not just broken, melted. Rebar dripped like wax. The floor was a glass-like crater. Bakugo was lying on his back 10 meters away. He was coughing, his gauntlet smoking. He looked up, his eyes wide, reflecting pure shock. Izuku stood up. He was surrounded by lingering wisps of emerald flame. They didn't burn him. They floated around him like protective spirits, waiting for a command. He looked at his hands. He had done that. He had stopped the blast. He had eaten the blast. Bakugo sat up, staring at the melted wall, then at Izuku. When? Bakugo's voice cracked. He sounded small. When did you get this? Izuku lowered his hands. The flames dissipated. I told you, Izuku said, his voice shaking but firm. It just happened. But this power, the fire, it's mine. It's not a trick. It's not a lie. It's me. Bakugo stared at him. For the first time, the word Deku didn't seem to fit the boy standing in the steam. This wasn't a useless wooden doll. This was a threat. Midoriya! Come in! Midoriya! Uraraka's voice crackled in his earpiece. Uraraka? I found the weapon! But Ida has removed everything from the room. He's monologuing. I can't get close. Izuku looked at Bakugo. Bakugo was getting up, his face twisting back into a snarl, but he was favoring his right arm. The recoil had hurt him. I'm not done with you! Bakugo yelled, charging again. Izuku didn't fight back this time. He looked up. They were on the 3rd floor. The weapon was on the 5th. Ida is expecting a fight on the ground. Uraraka is stuck. I can't beat Kaken in a brawl right now. I'm at my limit. The heat. I'm dizzy. Win the battle. Save the day. Izuku turned his back on Bakugo. You ignoring me? Bakugo screamed, firing an explosion at Izuku's back. Izuku used one for all. He jumped, not away. Up. He smashed his fist into the ceiling. Smash. Combined with a burst of heat, the concrete shattered. Izuku rocketed through the hole to the 4th floor. Get back here! Bakugo blasted up after him. Izuku ran. He punched the next ceiling. 5th floor. He burst through the floor of the weapon room. Debris flew everywhere. What the? Hero? Ida gasped, standing over the papier-mâché bomb. You breached the floor? Uraraka! Now! Izuku yelled. In the chaos of the debris, Ida was distracted. Uraraka, who had been hiding behind a pillar, used her quirk on a jagged piece of concrete Izuku had dislodged. Home run comet! She swung the pillar, launching debris at Ida. Recipro burst. Ida dodged with incredible speed. Foolish! You cannot, but Izuku wasn't done. He was still in the air from his jump. He looked at the weapon. He couldn't reach it. He was falling. Use the fire. Telekinesis. He reached out with his hand. He didn't shoot fire. He tried to pull, just like Mom. A tendril of green flame shot out like a whip. It wrapped around one of the support beams of the building above the weapon. Izuku yanked. The fire whip pulled him, swinging him through the air like a pendulum. What logic is this? Ida shouted. Izuku let go of the whip and crashed into the weapon, hugging it with his whole body. Captured. The buzzer sounded. Hero team wins! All Might's voice announced. Izuku slid down the side of the papier-mâché bomb. He was panting. His vision was swimming. Below, through the hole in the floor, Bakugo stood looking up. He hadn't chased him to the final room. He was just standing there, staring at the spot where Izuku had vanished. Izuku looked at his hand. The green whip faded. I did it. I beat him. But as the adrenaline faded, the heat stroke took over. Izuku slumped forward, darkness closing in. The aftermath. The infirmary was becoming a second home. Izuku sat on the bed, sipping an electrolyte pouch. His burns retreated, and his temperature was finally stabilizing. The door opened. It wasn't Recovery Girl. It was Bakugo. Izuku tensed. Kaken. Bakugo didn't enter fully. He leaned against the doorframe, looking at the floor. He was still in his costume, though the gauntlets were gone. You blocked it, Bakugo said. It wasn't a question. Yeah, Izuku said. With fire. Yeah. And you swung around like Tarzan. Yeah. Bakugo looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed. You were crying. When I asked if you were laughing at me, you were crying. I wasn't laughing, Izuku said softly. I've never laughed at you, Kaken. I wanted to stand on the same stage. Bakugo grit his teeth. You're not on my stage. You're just a bug that learned a new trick. He turned to leave, but Bakugo paused, his back to Izuku. You didn't die. And you didn't run away. He slammed the door shut. Izuku sat in silence. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was an acknowledgement. The lie was gone. The truth, or at least the version of the truth Bakugo could accept, was out. Izuku Midoriya had a quirk. And he was dangerous. The review. Later, back in the classroom, The MVP of this battle was young Ida. All Might announced. But Midoriya won, Uraraka said. Ida embraced the role of the villain perfectly, Momo Yayorozu explained, standing up. He prepared the battlefield. Midoriya, while successful, caused catastrophic damage to the infrastructure. That melted wall compromised the structural integrity of the entire building. If that had been a real rescue, the hostages might have been crushed. She pushed her glasses up. Furthermore, his attack was reckless. Creating a thermal reaction in a confined space with volatile chemicals? He's lucky he didn't suffocate everyone. Izuku shrank in his seat. She was right. He had panicked. And Bakugo, Momo continued, glancing at the blonde who was staring out the window. Acted on a personal grudge, ignored the objective, and used lethal force. It was unbecoming of a hero. Bakugo didn't react. He just stared at the sky. Izuku looked at his hand. The scars were throbbing. I have so much to learn, he thought. The fire saved me, but it almost destroyed everything. I need control. He looked at Bakugo's back. And I need to figure out how to exist in a world where Kaken hates me for being strong, instead of hating me for being weak.